Did you know that if you take wood scraps like this and you glue them together using a bunch of clamps and wood glue, you will end up with boards like this. And then you take those and you cut off shapes, like this adorable antler cutting board. Do you want one too? Well, follow me and lass uns anfangen.
There's dirt on my hands, strong like a tree. There's roots where I stand.
Oh, and before we start, I have to say I totally went overboard with this project and made not only one, but a whole stack of boards. However, there is a reason for this, but let's talk about this more next week. For now, let's concentrate on making some unique, fun, and stylish boards out of wood scraps. I started a project by going through my scrapwood pile to pick out only hardwood pieces. I found some cherry, walnut, and some maple pieces. Most of the pieces were leftovers from project that I used the CNC machine for. I always end up keeping most of the pieces from my cutouts that most people just throw away. Sometimes the pieces are very thin, but I think they would look great glued up together. The end goal here is to end up with a bunch of straight pieces that make a nice glue up. To help me do the job, I used my miter saw and my table saw. Last time I came back to Nevada, I decided not to bring my miter saw, but then I really started to miss it. So this time I made sure to pack it first, so I could have no excuse of not having enough room for it. And I'm really happy I did. It just makes things so much easier and convenient. Once I had all the pieces roughly cut, I took them over to my table saw to straighten out a few more pieces that were not fully straight. I wanted to end up with no gaps in between the pieces. I think it's the worst when you put so much effort into a glue up and then you end up with glue ups that have tiny cracks in between them and it looks so low quality and like a messy job. You definitely want to avoid that. This is all the pieces I had so far. I cut off the longer pieces and added them to the sides to end up with a wider surface. Then I took the pieces over to my clamps and glued them up with the clamps and some Titebond 3 wood glue. I think you can never use enough glue, while I have seen other creators say that you should not use that much glue. But if you ever glued up a project and ended up with some gaps in between the seams because you did not use enough glue and the wood was not able to soak up any glue, you will quickly change your attitude and rather use too much than too little. I mean, wood glue is not that expensive, not worth messing up a whole project for. Once I added the way too much glue amount, I tightened the clamps. While it looked like I used all my power to do so, I actually did not. Make sure you do not over-tighten the clamps, otherwise you might end up with bent wood. Just tighten in a knot until you see an even squeeze out of the glue in between the seams. Then let it dry. While this was drying, I found some cut-off pieces of cherry hardwood that I got a while back. So I thought while I was waiting for the glue to dry, this would be the perfect time to start running the CNC machine to build a few additional boards. Once the CNC machine finished cutting the pattern, it was time to round over the edges. I think those round over edges make the whole difference of bringing the board to life. It gives the antlers almost like a 3D look, like they're real antlers. This is a 2 cm thick cherry board. Setting the hand router to the lowest setting with my round over bit, it almost touches the opposite side. So I ended up with almost fully round antlers, making them look super realistic. And then it was time to have some fun. It's time to send it all smooth. So let's put on some music and have some fun with it. Once the board was sanded smooth, it was time for the next step, and this step is very important. Never skip the step of spraying water onto the board and letting it dry. This will raise the grain. Once dried, come back and sand it smooth one more time with the last grit you used before. This will elevate the quality of the board. Once the board is used and cleaned for the first time with water, it will not raise the grain and will stay smooth for longer, making it look like a much more high-quality product than otherwise. And while this is drying, the glue-up of the very first board is dry enough to run it through the planer to get the surface nice and straight for another beautiful antler board. The planer I'm using is from DeWalt. It's probably the most used planer in hobby to small workshops. The price and quality of the planer is just unbeatable compared to other models. Just perfect. Perfect. Then I took the boards up to my crafts room to add the finish. Here you can see a few of the boards that I've already finished at this point. I did not only make antler boards, but also a few different ones. For the finish, of course, I'm using MeikeMade liquid hydration. Add a good amount, rub it in, let it soak in as much as it likes overnight. The next day, take off any extra and finish the board with Mousse Magos wood butter. In case you do like to add an engraving like I did to some of the boards, wait for the last coat and add this after you engrave. I mean, you could really use either strategy. It's just mine and it works for me. For the engraving, I wanted to go with a winter theme that goes with the antlers, so it shows some pine trees and snowy mountain tops. On the back side, I added my logo. The fun part about it, I made the engraving of the logo super deep to fill it in with resin later, to make the logo look shiny. If you like to add the engraving of the mountain to your project, I uploaded a file in my Etsy store, which is linked in the details below. I think that gives the product a completely different look, so elegant and much more expensive than it actually is. Such a simple way to add a unique style to your products. And I'm sure you just noticed the scratches in the antler. I did that, and I fixed it by sanding the piece again. And that's the pile of the boards that I've made so far. Some have engravings, others don't. All are very unique and different. And we are fertig! Wow, another project in the books. And I have to say, I love every single board. But I made them, so that doesn't really count, I guess. Which one is your favorite? Let me know in the comments below. I always love to hear from you. Also, if you haven't done so, like and subscribe to my channel. Most importantly, click the bell button to get notified of new videos. If you can, please join my Patreon. That helps me create more YouTube videos. And if you're wondering if I'm really modeling every single board here right now, yes I am, because I like to do things like that. I'm proud of the things that I create and I like to show them off. Why not? Thank you so much for everything you do. See you next Friday. Tschüss und auf Wiedersehen.